How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So, New World has been out for a few days at this point, and it's pretty safe to say that the trade skills are proving to be quite the grind. But luckily for you guys, I'm going to break it all down and make it all nice and easy for you. So, today we're going to take a little bit of a look at logging, but with a focus on the early game. If you are looking for that slightly more advanced, that more end game guide, make sure you hit the like button, stay subscribed, and I'll have that out to you as quick as I can. But for today, we're going to look at everything that we need to know to get up and running with logging and to get your skill not only to, but to surpass skill level 100 quickly and easily. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that not all trees in this game are equal. You have some skinny trees, some not so skinny trees, some green ones, some sort of ones with lots of leaves, ones without any leaves. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter too much. If you can swing your axe at the tree, you can probably chop it down and get some loot, as you can see on screen right now. Two factors to learn early on, though, is that the experience gains tend to be more linked to the amount of swings you have to do to chop that tree down. So you saw there, that was like 4 swings. That gave us 73 logging experience. If we hit a tree, 1, 2, 3, 4 swings, 73 logging experience. Again, if we can try and find maybe a skinnier tree that falls quicker. 1, 2 swings, you can see we only got 37 experience. So don't feel the need to be too fussy. Spend as much time as possible whacking these trees and you'll level up relatively quickly. That's big tip number 1. Always be chopping. The more time you spend chopping, the more experience you'll gain and the quicker the leveling process will be. But now we know the fundamentals of how we go about doing it, let's take a little bit of a look at what we're going to be chopping, how and when we unlock things, and break it down into a little bit of detail. So you start off only actually being able to chop down the young trees. These are pretty much scattered all over the place, and in virtually every zone in the game you're going to find a bunch of these. These are pretty easy to chop down though, 2 to 5 swings a piece and they'll fall pretty easily, and they offer up their greenwood. This is the greenwood right here. The greenwood is pretty much the foundation for your entire logging, and if you plan to extend your trade skills further into woodworking, you will actually need this in ridiculous quantities. So don't be afraid of chopping down young trees, even if you surpass their, advertised skill level. Very quickly on, though, you'll stumble across these mature trees. Is this one here? This looks like a mature tree. Yes. You'll stumble across the mature trees. These require you to have skill level 50 before you can chop them down. They take a few more swings to fall, but they also offer up a new version of the material, the tier 2 of the basic material, which is referred to as aged wood. You're also going to need an awful lot of this if you plan to move into woodworking at some point. Third, you get this little magical one. This is called the Wardwood Tree. This is only choppable once you are skill level 100 plus. These are actually very, very rare to come across, but the rarity works different to what most people would understand if they've come from other MMOs. A lot of my audience has a World of Warcraft background, and a rare spawn is usually just a rare version of a normal spawn. It's not the case with these though. In New Worlds, these have fixed spawn locations. They will respawn in the exact same place it fell, so make a mental note of where you find them on the map. In the beginning zones, there's only a couple of locations that these are. I can give you a bit of a heads up of where I am right now for those that are interested. I'm on the hill near the Inkwell Cave, just outside of the Windswood City. These will always respawn. They have a respawn time of about, I want to say, 8 to 10 minutes. They take a lot longer to hit, but they offer up a fancy new wood for you as well. I go chop this one down. You can see the amount of swings it takes is considerably higher to do. And you probably want to clear the area of mobs before you do it. Expect these to be camped though. The likelihood will be is because of the rare nature and the limited spawn locations, you'll have loggers just waiting to chop these down. So either try and do your chopping of these at awkward hours, or try and learn where the spawn locations are and the spawn timers for them. Now that we know what we're going to be chopping though, I suppose, in fact, before we do move on, what I should probably point out is the fact that there is a fourth tree. I'm not really talking about it too much in this video, as I want to keep this for the basics. Eventually, though, you will be able to chop down ironwood. You've got to be skill 175 to even chop these down, and you've got to be 200 before you can track them. But that will be, we'll talk about this more in a advanced logging guide. These are pretty much exclusive to the end game, or the higher level zones anyway. So until you get sort of mid-30s plus, you're probably unlikely to even come across these anyway. But now we know what we're chopping down. Let's take a little bit of a look at the tool that we're going to use to do the job. Of course, that is going to be our axe for logging. And not all axes are born equally. So let's go and take a little bit of a look at those in detail. So our axe is going to start off slow. It's going to be basic in nature and about as dull as it gets. But a tool is only as good as its user. So there are 5 tiers of axes that we can potentially use. These are predominantly categorized by the metal that is used to craft them. Flint, iron, steel, star metal, and then finally the orichalcum. Now, for those of you that are wishing to be sufficient, you can actually craft these with your engineering. At various levels throughout, going all the way down, you can craft most of the professions with profession tools, I should say. Here we go, orichalcum skinning knife, harvesting sickle, logging axe, here we go. Your engineering is going to be the source for crafting these, but for most people that are looking to get up and running with logging, we're going to turn to our local trading post. Now, for me, the number one thing about your axe is going to be the gear score of it. Why? Well, let's take a little bit of a quick look into this then. So let's go to gathering tools. Let's go to logging axe. Here you can see the different variations which you can quickly search for. If we look at the iron ones, for example, they tend to have a relatively low gear score, but what you'll notice on them is that the axe themselves gives a boost to gathering speed. Having a higher gear score is going to increase this gathering speed, and for me at least, this is the number one priority for you when choosing your axe. Although it should be mentioned that you can pick up perks on this gear. Now, most pieces of gear in New World have the ability to offer additional advantages over what is the base version of it. Your quantity of perks is going to be limited somewhat by the rarity. So you can see a common variant will not have any perks. An uncommon variant might have 1, possibly 2 perks, and so on and so on. So the rare ones you can see here, these have got maybe 3 different perks available to them. These perks are going to increase your logging skill performance in some way. But one thing I would like to clarify is for the early game logging, the perks are something that I would consider a nice to have. I probably wouldn't spend heavily trying to buy the best combination, but of course that is entirely up to you. Some of the perks that can be helpful though are as such. We have the Lumberjacks Discipline. Let's see if I can find this one. This looks like a good example. Yeah, here we go. We have Lumberjacks Discipline, which is going to increase the amount of experience that we gain by logging. Very, very helpful for whilst we're logging up. Maybe not so beneficial for once we've hit max level. We also have Logging Luck, which is going to increase the chance to find rare items whilst logging. There is also another one called Logging Yield. Let me see if I can find one that's got the Logging Yield on it. In true fashion. Oh, here we go. Logging Yield. Logging Yield is going to increase the amount of resources that you're going to acquire whilst chopping down stuff as well. There is an honourable mention here, though. One that's not really directly linked so much to logging, but it's the Azoth extraction, giving you the ability to, or a chance at least, to gain extra Azoth when you are completing the gathering of a single node. Now, Azoth is not only going to be useful for you for quick travelling between cities, but is also later on used for increasing your chance to proc additional items when crafting, but more on that in another video. It should be noted there is actually Lumberjack Gear. If we quickly search for some Lumberjack Gear, you can see there is Lumberjack Gear that can not only boost your construction. Let me see if I can actually find any on the auction house, the trading post currently. Let's select all the settlements. That will give us a bit of a better chance. Here we go. You can see there are lumberjack bits of gear. This is going to boost your constitution, which we'll talk about in a second, but will also help increase the amount of luck. Luck, generally speaking, is just going to help you find rare items when doing some whacking down of those trees. Lumberjack gear can cover the hat, the gloves, the pants, the shirts, and the shoes. So there's a handful of pieces that you could equip, build yourself up a lumberjack set if needs be. There are some other buffs that we should talk about that are going to help you with your logging. Firstly, there are the logging trophies. These go into your player housing, your homes, and these are going to offer you yet even more luck if you pick one of these up. Once again, it's early days for the game, so not all of these may be available on the trading post now, but you might be able to pick them up. Let's see if we can find... Oh, here we go. You can see some examples of some minor logging trophies here. There are also some trade skill buffs that are helpful to have as well. It's the cabbage variety for us guys. Let's see if we can find the recipe. Here we go. Well, let's just search for that one. Salted poultry with cabbage. That's the top end one. Can we find? Here we go. Logging trade skill buffs. Cabbage varieties. These are going to also help increase the amount of luck for you whilst you're out and about doing some logging. And they have a duration as well. Starting off at 20 minutes, moving up to all the way up to I think 40 minutes. But they do also have the higher the level, the version of them, or the higher the tier, I should say. They do also start to have an increased level requirement as well. Let's see if there's any really high-end ones. Here we go. Tier 3 herb roast cabbage is going to increase your logging luck by 1700 for half an hour, but it requires level 20. And as you can see, the higher-end ones start to be a requirement of 40. And I think the very top-end one has a requirement of 60. Yeah, here we go. Requires level 60 to use. But your logging luck will be increased by 2,000 for 40 minutes. So you can put one of these on if you need. And finally, I suppose the last thing I should talk about when it comes to buffing your logging skill is actually something that you have a little bit more control over. And that's your player attributes. Constitution actually directly buffs your logging. If you look at these little nodes or milestones for your attribute points. Once you get 50 points in Constitution, you gain a plus 10% logging speed. Some other buffs that are useful. The one to really note, though, is the end one. If you manage to max out your Constitution at a 300 points, there is a 25% chance for you to chop down a tree in a single swing. Obviously, like we were talking earlier, the faster you can chop down the trees, the better for everybody, right? So there we go. That is pretty much all of the buffs and the stats and everything we need to know about gearing ourselves up for the purpose of logging. So then, that's pretty much all you're going to need to know to start leveling your logging. Also consider leveling up your woodworking while at it, as you can actually level them up almost simultaneously. Not to mention, you can also make some good coin while at it. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll make sure to get a woodworking guide out to you all soon. Now go chop some trees, y'all, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.